You may not realize that when you have a ride where the riders are an audience, that they have possibly the biggest role in whether that ride is a good ride, a fun ride, or a bad ride that you wish you'd skipped. So I am actually out at summer camp with my teenagers. I found a little bit of time to slip away. You can see the lake behind me. If you hear some odd noises, it's probably a boat rolling by or that nice little dock there behind me that's creaking. Just a beautiful place up here at Lake of the Ozarks. But wanted to make sure I took some time to still get my episodes done for you. One of the things that somebody mentioned to me was they asked how much of a role does the riders have on a ride? And in particular for me, I'm thinking about Rhino Rally and the train at Silver Dollar City, where the riders are not just riders on a ride like you would on a roller coaster, but they're actually an audience. They're participating with the driver, the conductor, the other people, and they actually become part of the ride. On Rhino Rally, we had 16 passengers plus a navigator that the driver would interact with, and he would tell stories about the animals, tell you facts, but he would also have an ongoing dialogue with them that would get them involved in the storyline. When I would get a good group of people who were involved, it was a lot of fun. If I had a navigator that would tease me back and interact, it was great. We could have a ton of fun. But if I had a group of people that were really stiff and just like, yeah, okay, we're just out here, it was terrible. And it almost wouldn't matter what I did if they weren't going to have a good time. Well, they just weren't going to have a good time. And you would find, especially if people didn't have a sense of humor, it just absolutely killed the ride. Some of the jokes, yes, are dumb. They're now what we would call dad jokes or puns or silly things. A good example of a Rhino Rally type of joke was, hey, look at all the flamingos over there. Does anybody know how they get their color? And usually you get somebody who would have a clue and say, oh yeah, it's because of what they eat. Right, they eat shrimp and it causes them to turn pink. So what would they look like if they ate a pack of Skittles? Hey, taste the rainbow. Sometimes you would get some great laughs off that joke and people would love it. And okay, if you like that one, well, I got another one. And you could just keep rolling and it would build up into a great little crescendo and you'd have a great time. But if you get people that you'd say that joke and they go, really? That was stupid? Okay, well, if you didn't like that one, they're not going to get a whole lot better. You kind of find yourself you feel like you're talking to a wall. They don't want to respond. You don't want to tell the jokes to a wall because that's no fun. And so you would run into a couple things where oftentimes I would still just keep telling them, but I would say, okay, I'm just rehearsing in my mind. I'm practicing. And I would try to get them involved somehow. But if it was just a dead group, then by the time we got to the river, it's like, dude, I'm not even going to act because you all don't care one bit. Where it would really get awkward is if I had a group of riders that didn't speak English. And then none of my jokes would even remotely make sense to them, and in which case it was like, why bother? Look, elephant. Look, zebra, water buffalo, rhino. And that's about all that the ride would be because they couldn't understand anything else. So the riders really had a role on Rhino Rally in whether it was a fun ride for them or not. And whether it was a ride that I could have fun with and get them encouraged and involved and doing some extra things. Because the more that the riders would get involved and start giving feedback, it would give me more opportunities to respond to them. And especially true on the train as well at Silver Dollar City. For us, the hardest trains to do were when you had about a dozen people on the train. Because when you have a really small group, they were almost afraid to hear themselves laugh. It was kind of scary. They'd be spread out and, oh gosh, what if somebody notices that I'm laughing? And that wouldn't be good. So we didn't like small groups on the train. Again, it became a practice run and we wouldn't do a whole lot extra because it was hard. The full trains in the midst of the heavy summer heat were also really tough to deal with. Because at that point, the people on the train, they're just hot, they're sweaty, they're tired, they don't care, they don't want to watch. And so they're just not going to laugh because they're not feeling good. They're not having fun, regardless of what you do. So oftentimes in the heat, if we were getting trains like that, we would actually cut the show short. Okay, look, they don't want to be here. We're not going to torture them or ourselves. And we had signals that we would use for each other. We just, kill it, get them out of here. They don't want to be here. So why make anybody miserable? But at the same time, if we got a train that they were in a good mood, and the weather had a big effect. If it was a beautiful day, a gorgeous day, kind of like what I got out here right now, where people were comfortable, where they were having fun, you'd see them start laughing at the jokes. Well, if they were responding to our jokes, then we would start doing more jokes. If they gave us weird stuff off the train, and we could incorporate, and they'd laugh at that. And we would have times that just because the audience was responding so well, and so we would give them more, and they would laugh more, and so we would give them even more, and we'd laugh more. And we would literally pour ourselves out during a train robbery because they were enjoying it so much. Then when they did finally leave, and if we had a really good train, we'd run long. We'd throw everything we had at them and plus some and make it up. We would find ourselves walking back into our robber shack after they left and just collapsing into our chairs because we were exhausted because we had poured out so much for them to enjoy because they got so wrapped up and involved in it. Some of the best that we had were Moonlight Madness trains. There was just something about nighttime hitting when the boats are rolling by. Yeah, you can see all these boats. Hey, look, it's actually a water patrol. I wonder if they're coming for me. And he is actually coming right this way. This is interesting. But we would have a great time during the Moonlight Madness. During the afternoons, they would get hot. They'd be miserable. People weren't having a good time, and so they would kind of move along. But then after that, once it cooled off, all of a sudden people were having fun. Nighttime hit, and they would go nuts. We could get people doing crazy things on the train, singing along songs. We had a couple conductors that would lead them in these just ridiculous songs and chants. I mean, the trains would actually be coming into the station with everybody still chanting back and forth and competing. And then we could get some crazy things going during the show where we would get the trains so involved in the show that we actually had a couple times where the trains kind of sort of took over. We had one routine, for example, where Alfie and Ralphie Bolin kind of turned into cheerleaders a little bit. It's called the fight 'em routine. F-I-T, fight 'em, fight, We could get the crowd cheering for these two goofball train robbers attempting to do a ridiculous cheer. And we would get like one half of the train yelling fight and the other one fight, fight, and we would be going back and forth with the ends of the train cheering, and they would get so involved in it that we couldn't even get a line out. We just kind of roll along. And if we hit a really stupid joke, we at one point with that fight 'em routine, later the conductor comes back and he delivers a line that says, "You are this close to an idiot." And as the robber stepped away, the train started in again with fight, fight, You just lose it. You just kind of roll with it. And it was great fun. So we loved when the trains would get involved. And it really is kind of true for showmanship anywhere. If you go to any sort of a show, as an audience, you're going to get a much better show if you get involved, if you laugh at the jokes, if you applaud the songs, if you encourage them. Anything that the audience is a part of and will affect the show. If you're performing and you've got a dead audience and they don't want to laugh, well, you know what? They're just not going to get a great show. And it can actually completely throw the actors off. When we would have people on the train, because a lot of the jokes were the same jokes that had been used, literally some of them since the 60s. We would get people sometimes who would think that they were really cool, really special, and they would like to actually throw out the lines before we said them, thinking that that was funny. Well, it wasn't funny. It could completely kill and destroy a show, ruin any interaction that we had with the guests, and ruin the whole fun. We hated when we do that, and usually it was somebody that didn't care if they ruined it because they were so busy trying to show how incredibly cool they were. So you can have one or two people completely ruin it. If you've got somebody who's intent on being a jerk or being stupid or being mean or rude, they'll ruin it for everybody. And it's very hard as a performer to be able to recover from that, to be able to do something else besides that. In fact, I think about the Rockets, the kid magicians that are at Silver Dollar City this summer. They're 11 and 9 years old, and in many ways, they're almost kind of set up because there's so much hype at the beginning. People are expecting these incredible professionals who've been doing this for decades, and they have an 11 and a 9-year-old, and they are an 11 and a 9-year-old. And the audience would be just stiff and hard and not wanting to respond, and they don't have the tools to be able to deal with that. And what do you do when you get a hard crowd? Well, with the train, we had different methods of being able to deal with a hard crowd. We could cut the show short if they were really being annoying. If we had a couple hecklers, we had a couple lines and a couple prearranged signals where we could deal with hecklers and essentially heckle them back, put them in place, and end the heckling. And then it would allow everybody else to have a good time, because usually they would laugh at the shame of the person who thought they were being really neat and got put in their place. Don't be a heckler, you're not cool. So a lot of things like that, the performers can definitely affect it some. If you are not feeling well, if you're sick, it is much harder to be able to put on a good show. But you'll find that if the audience gets into it with you, that they're going to respond. They're actually going to pick you up, and your energy level will come up the more they respond as well. So yes, your audience can play a big role, and this is true on a lot of rides. If you're at Disney, Kilamanjaro Safari will have the same kind of thing. Jungle Cruise will have the same kind of audience participation and reaction. And if you've got a bunch of good riders who are having fun and enjoying it, you're going to get a much better performance out of your skipper and your driver. So keep that in mind as you go on the rides. Encourage them, laugh, smile. Even if you feel like a goober doing it, do it, because you're going to end up contributing to it, and it's going to give everybody a better ride experience than if you sit there stiff as a board. Which I have to admit, honestly, when I'm a rider and I'm attending a show, that's kind of my natural thing, is I just kind of want to sit and do nothing. And so I have to push myself a little bit. But the reason I do is because I know how much it helped me and affected me when I was performing, when I was driving, when I was conducting, when I was robbing. And the more people did that for me and encouraged me, the better it helped me be, and the better show they got out of me. And so I try to do the same thing when I see others. So have you seen a show, a ride, where the riders really, really affected what happened? Something like the ones I mentioned, maybe another ride I'm not even thinking about, but where the people watching could have an active role and they would help determine whether it was going to be a fun ride or a terrible ride. I'd love to hear about it. Share it in the comments below. If you've got other questions or anything you'd like to know, don't forget to share that as well. Don't forget to hit the like button. Share the video too. Thank you so incredibly much for watching, and God bless. If you'd like to know about my merchandise, fan pages, and more, be sure to check the description below. If you'd like to know whenever I've got a new video posted, well, make sure you hit that button right up there and subscribe. If you'd like to watch another one of my videos, I've got a great one for you right here. And if you'd like to be like these wonderful people here and support me financially on Patreon, well, make sure you check the link right there. There's even some extra perks for them. Thank you so much, and God bless.